background, and how many of you from other than social science background? Any idea about that? Are there anybody with the psychology background?
No.
Yes,
No.
sir.
No psychology man?
Yes, sir.
Psychology is there?
Yes, sir. I am Ologur Ranjan Khatua from West Bengal, Mugure Gangadhar Mahavidyalaya.
Very good. Very good.
I am the teacher of philosophy and I learn psychology as a
Good. Very
subject.
good. Very good. Okay, now the reason why I asked is a simple reason. For human rights, psychology is a very new area for them. You know the reason for that? Although we look into the history, like when we talk about psychology, we say psychology has got a very long past, but a short history. Similarly, for human rights, it has got a very long past, but it has got a short history. Actually, even for this human rights and psychology, I just wanted to give you the topic like, in human rights, what is the relevance of psychology? To what extent it is relevant in understanding human rights through psychology? Does it sound good for you? Does it sound good for you? The relevance,
sir.
relevance of psychology in understanding human rights? Yes. Okay. Now, as I told you, human rights psychology is a very short history, I'm telling you, that actually APA, American Psychological Association, has started this thinking about human rights very recently. It just started in 2009. It started thinking about how best psychology can contribute to human rights. But otherwise, the whole basic background, the basic philosophy of this human rights is psychology only. But as an academician, as a theorist, then there is a little understanding required. Now, in 2009, when APA first met, created a vision statement for human rights, which says, an effective champion of application of psychology to promote human rights, health, well-being, and dignity. This is how it started. Now, that is the slogan is started. APA starts like this, American Psychological Studies. Okay. In 2009, I'm repeating, in 2009, APA created a vision statement. A vision statement saying, an effective champion of the application of psychology to promote 1, human rights, 2, health, 3, well-being and dignity. See, with this background, the psychologists have started working in the area of human rights. And APA is still trying to connect how best it can think of it. As you all know, that in when we trace back to 13th century, we go back to the history of this human rights. We need to think in terms of when exactly we started about thinking about these human rights. It was in 13th century, Magna Carta started the modern understanding of the term only after the affairs officer of APA during the Second World War. A psychologist was there in this panel who has participated in the discussion in 1948 in the United Nations General Assembly adopted Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Okay. Now, a senior legislative and federal affairs officer at APA, American Psychological Association, who focuses on human rights, And during this period, he publishes 30 articles, research articles, how psychology and human rights can go together one to one. Now, the basic philosophy, I will come back. The basic philosophy of going to understand this human behavior here is a humanistic approach in psychology, we call it. The humanistic approach. Humanistic approach. Now, what does this mean, humanistic approach? You must have come across, because there are many other people who would explain you about the history and background of human rights. I'm not going into the details of that. For example, very recently in October 29, 2019, you have again, there was a mention about human rights somewhere in the media before. But again, how relevant it is and all, it is questioned. The Human Rights Act 1998 also questions like this. So we are not going to the background of human rights here. We are going to the background of psychology, how it is relevant to human rights. So in this context, probably I would say humanistic approach is the best way to understand human rights. Humanistic approach. Probably you must have come across Carl Rogers. You must have heard Carl Rogers, who talks about humanistic approach. Okay, now in this humanistic approach, normally what happens is, in general, when we talk about human rights and Human Rights Act, who must comply with the human rights, government departments, local authorities, hospitals and NHS services, schools, police and prison, immigration officials, the court and tribunal system, public prosecutors, and ombudsman. These are in general that normally we comply with when we talk about human rights. But when it comes to the other bodies, such as the private organizations, the private hospitals that are providing NHS care, private care homes paid for by the local authority, housing associations providing publicity funded housing, utility companies, public transport providers, private companies employed in publicly funded establishments such as prisons. Now, these are certain areas that psychology covers. So you need to be very careful about this. Now, let us see how there is an overlap, how there is an understanding between rights contained within Human Rights Act. Okay. Now, the Article 2 of the Human Rights Act is a right to life. Right to life. Everybody has a right to live. Do you agree with this?
Yes, sir.
If that is the case, why suicides are taking place? So you need to question your parallel questions. Okay, you need to go on thinking like this. Okay, the right to life, as well as say you need to prohibit the ending of a life, prevent suicides, prevention of suicides. There is a prevention of suicides. Must also take action as a priority to your life if it is in danger. For instance, police should come to your rescue or help if they have been told that your life is threatened by someone. You agree or not? It's a very simple thing. If somebody is facing a threat, and if you inform the legal authorities, the police should protect your life. A very simple statement which requires right to life. Do you agree? Do you agree with this? Okay. Similarly, Article 3. Article 3 talks about freedom from torture or inhuman and degrading treatment. This prohibits ill treatment that causes severe suffering. Now, suffering in terms of either mental or physical, as well as anything that is grossly humiliating or undignified undignified way of handling the individual. And if there is a failure of local authority, now that also can be classified under this, including home and hospitals also. I'll just give few examples, that's all. Article 4 talks about freedom from slavery and forced labor. Freedom from slavery and forced labor. See, no one may ever be enslaved or made to work and be unable to live, whether through physical or psychological threat. These are certain small things that it looks like, but it appears very severe cases when you really question through human rights. Article 5 talks about the right to liberty and security. The right to liberty and security, which means you cannot be deprived of your liberty unless it's in accordance with the law. For example, if you have been lawfully arrested, or given a prison sentence, or where you have been detained under Mental Health Act 1983. If the correct procedure in respect of any detention is not followed, you can raise a legal challenge against the police. We have another Article 6, which talks about right to a fair trial. Many people are wondering about why I am talking about this. Article 7 talks about no punishment without law. Article 8 talks about right to a private and a family life. We don't really think in these terms, but I tell you very interesting things. Right to a private and family life, you are entitled to live a private and family life without interference from public authorities. Very interesting things. Human rights has got good number of treasure, but we are touching very few things and talking about the human rights. And most of the times what we do is we condemn what this human right is doing, after seeing certain cases. But I tell you, we need to be aware of this. Every article, if you just go through that, the awareness itself can make a very good citizen, and once a good citizen, there is a good society. Now, right to a private and a family life. Article 9, freedom of thought, belief, and religion. It sounds a little strong. Freedom of thought, freedom of belief, and freedom of religion. This is where the lot of controversy starts. Freedom of thought. Are you free to think? Are you free to think?
Yes, sir.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Freedom of thought, freedom of belief, Freedom of belief. If there are problems happening in and around in our society, it is on the basis of these three: freedom of
Yes.
thought, freedom of belief, and freedom of religion. Most of the situations, the problems we are facing nowadays is on Article 9.
Mhm.
Everyone has a right to hold religious and non-religious beliefs. Every one of us have this right, without state interference, and the right to choose and change, choose beliefs. I have right to change my beliefs also. Then we have Article 10, the freedom of expression. What you thought, what you believe, okay, you need to express. The freedom of expression is another thing, which is an important article that we need to keep in mind. Now, above all, the right to protect and freedom of association. Let me tell you one interesting right. We call it as right to marry. Every one of us have right to marry, which says you have right to enter into marriage and have a family subject to any legal restrictions such as minimum age limit and prohibition of marriage to close relatives. Right to marriage. I'm talking these things not just because I want to tell you these things. I'm just telling you how much of psychology is hidden behind these things. How much of psychological concepts that you need to think in terms of. Okay. Then there is another Article 14, which is common for everybody. Everybody knows this article. Protection from discrimination. We call it protection from discrimination. You are entitled to benefit from all rights and freedoms within the Act without discrimination from any public body, which means that you cannot be treated less favorably than someone else in a similar situation, and you cannot be disadvantaged by reason of your circumstances. For example, if you are disabled and treated the same as an able-bodied person, discrimination can be on wide range of grounds. Discrimination, age, discrimination religion, discrimination gender, discrimination political parties, discrimination culture, discrimination tradition, there are several other things. I was talking to you about basically my approach will be humanistic approach, where all these things we have to look from a different perspective. That I call it as humanistic perspective. Why did I call it as humanistic perspective? Why did Carl Rogers talk about the humanistic perspective? Here are some humanistic perspective examples that I will be quoting for you. See, a person feels like his or her life is bland or boring. A humanistic perspective would encourage the person to do some soul searching and determine what is missing. A hobby or friendship or relationship, whatever it takes for the person to feel fully self-actualized is what it should be sought as a treatment. Now, if somebody says, I am not attended, somebody says I have not been taken care of, if somebody says that I am not cared in my office or at home, wherever you are. Now, the humanistic approach, people can question this. This is a humanistic approach, which encourages, I hope there is another theory which supports to this, Gestalt theory we call it. There is a special type of encouragement given for these people who are suffering with humanistic point of view. There are different kinds of therapies which are helpful for people who are suffering with disabilities. I may not be directly talking about disabilities and all, but with the humanistic approach background, I just give you, then go back to systems like. I will just start with mental health care law, 10 basic principles of mental health care in human rights. Mental health care law, 10 basic principles. Promotion of mental health and prevention of mental health disorder. Which means every one of us. So this is the reason why I gave you the background of these articles. These articles now can be referred to the specific situations. Promotion of mental health and prevention of mental disorders is the priority. Everybody should get access to basic mental health care. Every individual, like any general health care, it should be free, of course. But we do not know whether nowadays it has become a competition now to say even to get a free treatment, we need to support some political parties. So this is the situation nowadays. But I tell you, I'm talking about mental health care, mental health law. It should be access to everybody free. Mental health assessment in accordance with the internationally accepted principles. Okay, I don't know when you talk about mental health, getting married is a very simple life event, life situation. But at the same time, there are two individuals who participate in this throughout their life. They would like to be partners. How do they understand each other is the question now. There you say, no, we have gone through a lot of Kundalis, Guna, Gana, and Tella, ನೋಡ್ತಾರೆ 30, 35 ಗುಣ ಇರಬೇಕು ಅಷ್ಟು ಇರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. But actually, if you go by this mental health law, then before marriage, whether it is for a boy or a girl, we should have premarital counseling. Okay, this is everybody's right. It's a right to marriage. When I talked the relation, I told you the right to marry. So when it comes to this, and if the girl or a boy, if they say, I need counseling, I need somebody who can help for my marriage, you need to. There should be an accessibility for this. Okay. Provision of least restrictive type of mental health care. Now, least restricted I am talking about. Depression is a very severe one. I am not going to talk about very serious problems. I'll just talk about mentally ill, psychological disorder, something like this. Have you heard about the paranoid case? Have you heard about paranoid case? No. Okay, I just tell you there are some symptoms of paranoid, like for a person doubts on everything, everybody, everything around. ಸಂಶಯಾಸ್ಪದ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಸಂಶಯಾತ್ಮಕವಾಗಿ ನೋಡುವಂತಹದ್ದು. I hope there are people who can understand Kannada also.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This is one simple problem actually. ಆದರೆ ಇದೇನಪ್ಪ ಇದು ಮಾನಸಿಕ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆನಾ ಅಂತ. Is it really a psychological problem? This is of course yes, but it has got certain limitations. Okay. And after only that we can classify them into paranoid. Like for them also they have certain characteristics that we need to fulfill and give them. So this is where we call it as least restrictive type of mental health care. Okay, this can be treated then and there immediately. Treatment can be given, counseling can be given, and can be sent back. So the least restrictive mental health care is possible. Then right to be assisted on the exercise of self-discrimination. Now, automatic periodic review of mechanism, qualified decision maker. Now, these are certain things that you need to know about mental health. Basically, who is concentrating here? Many times when we talk about this mental health care, we talk only about the psychiatry. No, it is not psychiatry which is always that matters. You must have heard very recently in Madakeri, a lady who was just a lady nurse in the hospital. Now she is some big officer in Madikeri, and she is taking care of COVID-19 charge, and the rate of the death rate, number of cases has come down. Now, if you just talk to that lady, she says, as a nurse, I have done good service to the society. Now, earlier COVID was not a psychiatric disorder, but I am telling you now it's a psychiatric disorder. ಮೊದಲು ಕೋವಿಡ್ ಅಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಏನ್ ಅಂತ ಇದು ಆಗ್ತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಹೇಗಿದ ಹೇಗೆಲ್ಲ ಇರ್ತಿದ್ವಿ ನಾವು. ಬಟ್ ನೌ ದ ಫಿಯರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟೆಡ್. ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಫ್ ದ ನೇಬರ್ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಸುಮ್ನೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರು, ಸೀನಿದ್ರು, ಕೆಮ್ಮಿದ್ರು ಅಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಯು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಪುಟ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಯುವರ್ ಮಾಸ್ಕ್, ಯು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಡೌಟಿಂಗ್ ಯುವರ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ವೆದರ್ ಟು ಸಿಟ್ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಹಿಮ್ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್. See, we all developed these paranoid symptoms about COVID-19. Okay, now whether that fellow has suffering COVID symptoms or not, we don't know. But these things normally come. Now, what I mean to say is even COVID-19 has caused a psychiatric problem. That is what I'm telling you. Okay, it is also classified under psychiatric problems, which may cause patients to lack of social skills. Anyway, since you are telling social distance, there is a lack of social skills, which may cause inability to make point very clearly understood. Okay, rights of psychiatric patients have to be considered, cannot be ignored or abused by countries. We are seeing now the rights of rights of not only psychiatric, the rights of COVID-19 patients have also been abused. We have every right to get the COVID treatment. It's our right. It's our right, and we need to. Let us see whether it works as a right or not in future. Let us wait and see. Okay. Now, I'm just talking in terms of psychiatric disorders. You must have seen only the severe cases. You must have seen in movies like Papa Onna Malgisbutu. They keep cotton and one instrument there. Then they give electric shocks. Have you seen all these kind of things or heard?
Yes, sir. In movies.
In movies.
That's what in movies you must have seen. But I am telling you, without the consent of that client, the client has a right to refuse. This we call it as electroconvulsive therapy. We call it electroconvulsive therapy, which regulates the.
Sir, one thing, sir. One small doubt, sir. When the person is mentally disordered, means mentally not stable, how can they give the consent, sir? The consent will be relative, sir.
This I'll come to that. See, this is where you have limitations of that. This is what exactly is happening. As psychiatric patients, depending on the nature of the severity of the case, the nature of the severity, and this electroconvulsive therapy also, you cannot all of a sudden decide to give this therapy. It is not that all of a sudden jara ಬಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಅವನಿಗೆ ಇಂಜೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಂತ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ. Jara ಬಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಅವನಿಗೆ there are many other on the pills ಕೊಟ್ಟು ನೋಡಿ, first 3 days ಹೀಗೆ ನೋಡಿ, another 3 days you give something like this. Then if it is beyond anybody's control, then we go. And very particularly in psychological disorders or psychiatric disorders are not all of a sudden disorders. It takes at least 3 to 4 months that to develop that disorder, not all of a sudden.
Even the therapy won't give it immediately, no, sir. It will take time, no, sir.
That is where you need to convince the client. You need to convince the client what happens if this electroconvulsive therapy is given. You not only convince, you need to convince the disadvantages and what are the advantages of taking this, not only to the client and to the family members also. This is a must. You need to follow the procedure. This is a must. Yes, madam. Please tell me. Which says, shall I go ahead? Shall I go ahead? Here we talk about the right to provide with a reasonable explanation of all aspects of one's condition and treatment. You understand this? The right to provide with the reasonable explanation of all aspects of one's conditions and treatment. This is where I told you, you need to convince the client what are the advantages of taking this therapy, what are the disadvantages of taking this therapy. Okay, not only this, it also, for example, any cesarean or operation needs to be little anesthesia. It can be local anesthesia or it can be the body part of the body anesthesia. And you know that anesthesia is also given depending on the body constitution, depending on the nature of the problem and all. So like this is the same thing. If an amount of more can damage the whole body or can damage the life also. So this is the reason we need to be very careful about. Then you need to take the consent. The right to freedom from restraint or other than during the emergency situation, then it is fine. Yeah, if you are talking about emergency situation, then it is fine. But we are not talking about, every case is not a case of emergency. You said something. Okay, now we need to think in terms of protecting the rights of mentally ill. We are seeing from that point of view, protecting the rights of the mentally ill. Availability, accessibility, acceptability, and quality are the core obligations and elements of right to health. I'll repeat. I'm talking with reference to protecting the rights of mentally ill. When it comes to this, availability, accessibility, acceptability, and quality are the core obligations and elements that of the right to health. Anybody who is talking about health, it's right to health, then you need to be considering these things. Now,
sir, please repeat once again, sir.
Protecting the rights of mentally ill. How do we do that? Is one, availability, accessibility, acceptability. Accessibility is different. Acceptability and quality are the core obligations for the right to health. Now, when it comes to mentally ill person, is in need of special care and attention, both at home and in the hospital, for a simple reason that he or she is unable to fend or himself or herself. Therefore, the responsibility for special care And attention also lies with the caregivers, including, now I'll give you certain conditions. At home also they have a right. When they are in hospital also, there is a right. It's not that when you are at home, now you can't claim everything like, at home also there are certain conditions that one has to fulfill. You must have seen, you must have heard in newspapers that very recently, last week, there was a news that one fellow, it's more than 6 months that he made his wife to suffer in the toilet. Did you read this? Very recently, it was there last week, just 1 week behind. And you must have come across several cases like this. Okay, that is where, even at home, I'm putting certain conditions. Even at home, the client, mentally ill person has certain rights. You should become aware of these things. Treating mentally ill person with dignity, decency, kindness, and compassion, which are very essential. Not suppressing the information that someone at home has been affected by mental illness. People don't want to share. People don't share this information outside the home. Forget about outside the home. Many times they themselves, they're in their own family, they would like to hide such informations that XYZ is suffering from mentally ill. Recognizing that the time is the essence and taking the ill person to the mental health facility for evaluation and admission if considered necessary by the treating mental health professionals. You can give treatment at home also, you can give treatment at hospital also. But these are certain conditions. When you are giving treatment, many of us, we have seen, they give you wrong Aadhaar card number, they give you wrong address, they give you wrong phone number, so that when the doctor writes a case history, that the society should not know about these facts. But I tell you, furnishing accurate postal address and the admitted individual to the hospital authorities at the time of admission is very essential. Nobody can escape. You have some questions you are looking at? Nagaraj sir, you have some question? Dr. Yogesh? No? Very good. Madam Mangala? Shall I go ahead?
Go ahead, sir, please.
Okay, right. Manjunatha sir? Okay. This is a very interesting one. Now, when the mental health client is being admitted or at home, how many of you would really like to take the risk of staying with the client? Would you like to take the risk of staying with the client? Even if your own family member, even if the client is your own family member, we do not volunteer to stay with the admitted relative or a family ward in open word, as the case may be. Yes, very difficult. Very, very risk factor we are talking about. You know what Supreme Court and human rights for persons with mental health states, admission of non-criminal mentally ill persons in jails is illegal and unconstitutional. This is the one most misused right by the criminals.
Sir, can you repeat once again, sir?
The Supreme Court has given certain guidelines on rights for persons with mental illness. Okay. There, when we talk about admission of non-criminal mentally ill persons in jails is illegal and unconstitutional. Now, how do you determine this?
Sir, the person who is insane, it's one of defense for him, no, sir. They won't arrest him and they won't put him into jail, no, sir.
Yeah, that's the reason exactly I'm asking you. So what to do now before we admit him?
So see, when they file a case against him, it's if he's insane. It's one of the defense under the criminal law.
How do you say he's insane? I agree.
Sir?
I agree. But how do you say he's insane?
He has to prove in the court. If it is proven in the court, then only will come to know he is insane. Otherwise, how can he come to know, sir?
Court will not ask this.
Medical certificate, sir.
Yeah, somebody said certificate. Somebody said, who will certify?
Yes, sir.
Doctor
Who will
only certify.
Again, you have
The
to go back
doctor
to
will
the
certify.
psychiatrist. This is what exactly.
Psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist.
So
It's a psychiatrist. Okay. So many times, as you said, people misuse this. Okay. This one and intoxication, both they try to do this. Okay. They say under intoxication or under the influence of, or since mentally ill, things have happened.
It will be misused, I mean, not by the patient, sir. The doctor will give the certificate only. He has to see and give, no?
Certified. When it goes for certification.
So that should be genuine certification.
That is, if it is certified, only then.
Has to do.
This is what the Supreme Court says. It should be genuinely certified.
By the psychiatrist.
By the psychiatrist. Genuinely certified. Okay. That is where you can talk in terms of non-criminal mentally ill person. Okay. All mentally ill persons kept in various central, district and sub jails must be medically examined immediately after admission. Suppose if somebody claims, so he is sent to jail, sub jails, district jails. He should be immediately subjected to medication. The doctor has to certify, the psychiatrist has to certify. And for this, a specialized psychiatric help must be made available to all inmates who have been lodged in various jails and sub jails. Agta idya? Agta idya? There was a movie in Kannada.
No, sir. No, sir. No,
There
sir.
was a movie in Kannada. Sudeepa movie bekanastade.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Nodidira adu?
Hodidiri, sir.
ಹೃದಯ ಗೀತೆ ಸರ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ವಿಷ್ಣುವರ್ಧನ್ ಕೂತ್ಬೋದು.
Adu one. Yes.
ಹೃದಯ ಗೀತೆ ಅಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಸುದೀಪ್ದು.
Sudeep,
Mentally retarded.
ಹೃದಯ ಗೀತೆ ಸರ್. ಹೃದಯ ಗೀತೆ.
You're right. You're right. So if the people are not certified, then you can't keep them with them. Only if it's certified, then you can't keep them in jails. You should shift them to mental hospitals. And a mental health team comprising of clinical psychologist, psychiatrist, psychiatric social worker. Is there anybody there? Psychiatric social worker with psychiatric specialization? Psychiatric social work? No? Okay, psychiatric social workers?
No, sir, no.
Okay. And these are the people, they constitute a team. Even it's not the individual who certifies. It is the team which certifies. a team of clinical psychologists, psychiatrists, psychiatric nurses, psychiatric social workers. This core team is a must to certify or qualified to certify that XYZ is a mentally ill person. But now the same Supreme Court says about rights of mentally ill clients. The same Supreme Court says the rights of mentally ill clients. This is where things are going in a different way. See, when a psychiatric patient enters a hospital, he loses his freedom to come and go. There is no passing like he comes and he rests sometimes and he goes back, he takes treatment, then he goes back, nothing like that. He has to himself schedule himself to the hospital, choose his activities, control his activities of daily living. That means his life will be fully conditioned as long as he is in the hospital. And once he is there in the hospital, his conditioned activities, then it is governed by the hospitals. For example, if he is also adjudicated incompetent, he loses his freedom to manage his financial, his legal affair, and make many important decisions, then he cannot. Please raise your questions because this is a new area of research. I told you it's just started in 2009, this research area. So there will be a lot of questions. So please do not hesitate to ask questions. Let us discuss more than one-sided.
Sir, I have a question.
Ah.
You explained about the mental ill persons and their rights. But nowadays, because of the competitive era, everyone is behaving like mentally ill person. So what do you say about that? What is the suggestion that you are going to give us?
No. See,
that is very important to us because of this very tight schedule.
This is where I told you Supreme Court has given that it has to be certified. I told you it has to be certified. You and we cannot just simply say tale sari illa adu heltare ellaru bekadavaru helbodu adage. It's not that.
Sir.
Sir.
It is just acting only, sir. It is not a genuine.
That's what exactly. So you can't just say unless he is certified, and certificate has to be given by this group of what I told you. It's a combination of clinical psychologists, psychiatrists, psychiatric nurses, social psychiatrists. Only they have to certify. The Supreme Court will listen only to them. If only this team certifies, it will accept. Otherwise, people around can tell hundreds of things, it will not accept. Now you helbodu ucha country avanu anta. And we tell many times. Sari illa bitbidappa avantundi yaktala kedaskati avan bagge anta. So that it's only for our convenient we talk about. But literally when we talk about ನನಗೆ ಇವನು ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಹುಚ್ಚ ಅಂತಾನೆ ಅಂತ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಹೇಳಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ನೀವೇನ ಕೇಸ್ ಹಾಕದ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮೇಲೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ then you will have to suffer a lot. You have to prove. ಆಯ್ತಾ ಮೇಡಮ್?
Sir, it is not about the convenience, what we are feeling. I am talking about the mental stress that we are facing.
Stress is different. Every human being nowadays, now the present situation is like that, he is experiencing stress. It is not only human beings, even animals, insects do experience stress. So what happens when an individual experiences stress, during that stress, probably the behavior pattern changes. That's what you mean to say. Okay, under tension, he behaves in a different way. Under anxiety, he behaves in a different way. That doesn't mean that he is insane or mad. Sometimes stress can aggravate also, and he behaves in an aggressive way.
Sir, due to stress is an aggravative form. In case if the stress is aggravative form, the people will come to suicide. Then how can it is a violation of human rights?
If it is self, then suicide. If it is for others, then it will be murder.
No, sir.
It is
my
not only suicide.
opinion is that no, if the person who has a aggravated form of
stress, you are talking, it leads to suicide.
Yes, sir. It is not a violation of human rights. He himself is taking
I'm
care.
telling you, if the stress is internalized, too much of internalized, and the stress factors are the internal locus of control, then he might lead towards suicide. But if it is the external locus of control, then I think if he gets aggressive, then he may hit others, harm others, and he may go to an extent of murder also. There are two extreme behaviors you'll see. Stress is not only...
That is different, sir. But for him, so we cannot link the human rights, no, sir. For the person who is having aggravated form of distress, is commit the suicide. So we cannot say his rights are violated. That's what I'm asking, sir.
You need to protect. This is what I told in the beginning. Everybody has got a right to live. Article 1, everybody has got a right to live.
Yes,
protect
sir.
him.
Right to
Help
life
him.
includes, sir. Right
Help
to
him
life
to come out
sir,
of the stress.
Article 21, which says, yes, sir. Article 21, which includes the positive right, includes the negative right, which has mentioned case, sir. It is a violation of Section 309 of the IPC. But what is my question is, he himself is making, isn't it? Then how can we tell it is a violation of human rights?
It's very simple. He needs help. He needs help. Can you extend him a helping hand?
If we know, we can help, sir. If we don't know, the person who is inside is suffering.
Because he is aggressive, because he is tension, he is committing suicide, he has suicidal symptoms. Once you know that, you need to help extending hand.
Yes, sir. During the pandemic period, so many people they committed the suicide, sir, because of the economical crisis, economical problem. So then, to whom we can blame, sir?
Don't blame anybody. Don't blame anybody.
It
is only our understanding. We cannot blame people and survive. No, we have to blame ourselves.
Yes, we cannot blame anybody.
We can only help
blame anybody.
If we can help.
Yes, sir. Lockdown is made only to protect the people. Lockdown is made only to protect the people this pandemic. So for that, we cannot blame the government also. But the people, because of this economical problem, they committed the suicide.
Yeah, this is quite natural. This is where people started helping. No, this is where I told. Helping, there is nothing wrong in helping in a different way. Not only by giving money that he can survive. No, give him some job. Ultimately, human rights thing comes that you need to help. Anyway, that section is there, I think. COVID-19 and problems. In the coming sessions, there are coming sessions. We discuss about that also. Now the question is, since you said stress leads to suicide. I agree, stress leads to suicide, but not necessarily suicide. Stress, if it is internalized, if internal locus of control is strong, then it leads to suicide. Otherwise, if it is externalized, and if it is external locus of control, then probably it can lead to harm others also and commit up to an extent of murder also.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Somebody wants something to ask?
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Please.
Sir, we cannot deny this, but sir, we have no the several way for the people, general people. So they have to decide suicide. But there are a lot of way to protect the trace. I mean the trace management.
Correct.
We can follow the trace management, but general people have about no things about no education, proper education. So they have to choose this. But suicide, we can avoid the suicide. through the good test management.
You're right. You're right. There are several ways to avoid these suicides.
Avoid this suicide.
Yeah, we can educate them otherwise also.
We are not bound to suicide.
Yes, yes, you're right. That is where to have a right to live. The first right I told you.
Right to live. Yes.
Right to live is to be protected.
Yes, thank
you.
That's why there is an amendment in the IPC. So previously what happened, committing a suicide is an offense. But now it is changed that it is a mental disorder that has to be looked into a humanistic approach.
Yes.
So you have to treat that person. So you have to come out of that one and that person to lead a good life.
Exactly. This is what exactly I was talking to you about, humanistic approach.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You need to help the client to come out that problem and help him to survive. That is where we talk about right to live. Anything else? Any other question? The more you ask questions, it will be better. Anything else, sir? No other question?
No, sir. Please, sir. Continue.
No, sir. Please.
Okay, now I'll just conclude by telling why I was talking to you about human dignity and humanistic approach. Okay, humanistic approach is based on human values. A call to psychology mission. And I'm sure that since nobody is except one, I think no psychologists are there. There is one more person by name B.F. Skinner. He writes a book in 1971, which is titled as Beyond Freedom and Dignity. Beyond Freedom and Dignity, with reference to human rights only. As a psychologist, he writes, okay, where rejecting the concept of human freedom and dignity, the humanistic psychology affirmed this concept. Now, the United Nations in 1948, when it declared, hey, mute madra paparilla. The United Nations in 1948 Declaration of Universal Human Rights, Article 1 of the Declaration states, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with the reasons and conscience and should act toward one another in spirit of brotherhood. Avata iga psychology humanistic approach andre. Now we need to extend a helping hand for every suffering. It is a very simple formula the humanistic approach has. One is love and affection. Another is being empathetic. ಇತರರಿಗೆ ಸದಾನುಭೂತಿಯನ್ನು ನೀವು ತೋರಿಸಿದ್ದೆ ಆದರೆ you are protecting the rights of the other individual. Right to live very particularly he talks about. Okay. Now you can go back to the old philosophy also. The philosopher Kant, okay, Immanuel Kant, who said, although he was an atheist, okay, very influential in his distinction, and he said the difference between price and dignity, it is the human value which matters, he talks about. ಮಾನವೀಯ ಮೌಲ್ಯಗಳಿಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೋ, ಮಾನವೀಯ ಮೌಲ್ಯಗಳು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳುವಂತ. So in human rights we need to respect human values. Being with dignity must be measured in accordance with his or her intrinsic worth. ಆ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿತ್ವದ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದರ ಆಧಾರದ ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಗುರುತಿಸಿ ಗೌರವಿಸಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಗುರುತಿಸಿ ಗೌರವಿಸಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳುವಂತ. This is how the humanistic perspective starts working. Okay, done. Any other question?
No, sir, no.
Okay. So if you don't have question, then there is some instruction from the office. ಬರ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಯಾರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅವರೇ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಾ
Dear friends, if there are no queries and questions, I request one of the participants to come forward and propose vote of thanks to Professor Venkatesh Kumar sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. If anybody interested, otherwise I'll proceed.
Go ahead, madam.
So, sir, thank you very much, sir. I thought in starting, so how the sir will link the psychology to human rights? I thought of the movies which is in the Soundarya and Vishnuvardhan movie. So the lady who is suffering with psychology and view the violation of human rights of others means you create the fear in the minds of others. I thought in that way, but sir has given very good link for the psychology and also the human rights. How it means here, the person with the psychology problem is lose his property, legal rights, mental, everything. So that is the one thing. Usually, if the person who is mentally, so in the Hindu law, they'll get the property, but some guardian will be there. So one thing, one more thing, except one of the co-participant of ours, only the one person is a psychological person. Other all are where the new subject, psychology is new subject for us. So you have given a link to the psychology and human rights very nicely, sir. And the thing which you have mentioned that here everybody has to extend your hand to the person who are suffering psychologically. That is very good, sir. So in that way, so we can avoid this suicide, the persons who are committing suicides. So we can give help for them, mental support only. It is moral support to those people. In that way, we can protect their human rights also. So you have given very nicely, sir. It is very much interesting. And even though after the post-class session, everybody is sitting properly, how the sir will link the psychology to human rights. It's very nice, sir. We have enjoyed the session. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. On behalf of all of us, of participants, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
All the participants are requested to stay for a few minutes.
Okay, sir.
ಇಲ್ಲ ನಂದು ಇದು ಸಪರೇಟ್ ಆರೆಂಜ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲ ಆರೆಂಜ್
ಈ ಮೂರು ಇದೆ ಸರ್
ಆರೆಂಜ್ ಅದೊಂದು ಸಾಕು
ಮೂರು ರನ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ನಾನು ಇದು ಆರೆಂಜ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕನ್ಫ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಕೆಲವರು ಫಿಂಗರ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ Hello. I request K. Rangaraju to speak whether he is attend or not. He is attending the session or not. K. Rangaraju. Attend ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ರಂಗರಾಜು ಅವರೇ? ರಂಗರಾಜು. ಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹೆಸರು ಇಲ್ಲ. ರಂಗರಾಜು ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ನಾನು ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ I think Rangaraju is absent or is not attended a course at all, I think. What about Rajesh Srinivas Shesham? What about Dr. Anand C. Nadavinamani? Anand C. Nadavinamani. Okay. Dr. Virupakshappa. Virupakshappa?
Sir, attended.
Okay. One more thing. ನೀವು ಇದನ್ನ ಕಳಿಸ್ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕು. ರಿಲೀವಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್ ಇನ್ನು ಕಳಿಸಿಲ್ಲ.
Yes, sir. ನಾಳೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀನಿ ಸರ್.
ನಾಳೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ಕೊಡಿ, ಮಿಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಡಿ.
ಇವತ್ತು ರಜೆ ಇದೆ ಸರ್, ಪ್ಲೀಸ್.
Okay, fine. Dr. Nusrat Parveen.
Sir.
You are also requested to submit the relieving order, and I think you are not submitted. Remitted 1,000 rupees as a registration fee through.
Yeah, both are submitted, sir.
Don't think you don't worry. Feel free. You please kindly send the acknowledgement or something else you got from the bank for submitting the amount. That and the relieving order you have to post it in the WhatsApp group, please.
Okay, sir. I will submit.
Okay.
I will submit.
No one can do it, please. Okay, sir. Thanks to all. All the participants are requested again to rejoin this link tomorrow at 9:55 instead of 10. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
What is go?